Hey guys, Dr. Noah, Dr. Mike, Dr. Wanda Lee. Yes, it's getting warmer. Yes, summer is right around the corner, and we need to have an important discussion with you guys because sun is important. Vitamin D production is important. Nobody loves the sun more than me. I'm an absolute sun worshiper, but we don't want to see anybody get sunburned, nor do we want anybody to use suntan lotions that are extremely toxic to yourself. So we thought we'd have a little bit of a discussion on what are safer suntans, what lotions, what else you can do, what you can do to build up your tolerance, just to get you thinking about sunscreens. I remember last year, I don't know if I say the articles, there was a huge amount of articles pushing on how detrimental these sunscreens are, and you know what? They're extremely detrimental to our coral reef too, which is like one of the biggest biodiverse areas in top of the rainforest in our entire world. So it's something we need to consider outside of ourselves to protect as well. And Wanda Lee, when I think of natural body care and things of that nature, I always think about you first because you concoct products, make products, talk about it often. So when we're talking about sunscreen, what are some of the things that come to mind first?
Well, that's one thing I don't make for myself. I know that there's recipes out there, and even coconut oil has an SPF of 7. So, like even the most basic products can build some protection from the sun. But really, when it comes to sunscreen, my go-to is Environmental Working Group. So ewg.org. They have a list. I'll just pop it up here. Best beach and sport sunscreens. So they list, they've tested them, they've tested the ingredients, they've looked at how they're made, what they're made with, all of that sort of thing. So they've got a exhaustive list on there of products that they recommend, and that's who I go to. There's probably 4 or 5 on there that I use when we're out in the sun. The big thing with sun is not to burn. Right. So do whatever it takes not to burn. We don't want to have sunscreen coating us all the time and not making any vitamin D, but we want to make sure that we balance that with not burning, because that's the big skin damage. And so, other than sunscreen, staying out of the sun during the worst hours, things like that, wearing clothes, and just sitting in the shade are great ways to be outside, get some sun on your skin, but not be dangerous about it.
Mike, you live in a beach community, so you see people horrifically burned every day, and you're outside in the sun a lot as well. What are your thoughts on suntan lotion?
For me, it's a little different. We use astaxanthin to ramp up our protection from the sun. And whenever, like, for example, whenever we've gone on vacation, we've gone and obviously going from a colder climate during the fall and the winter months to a warmer climate. And we've always let the kids go for 15 to 20 minutes without anything, because Wanda Lee said we're really just trying to protect them from getting sunburned, but yet we want the sun on the skin to produce vitamin D. And I'll defer to Dr. Joe McCullough, who really first came out with letting the natural sunlight on our skin to create the vitamin D. And then, we've always opted for the natural the natural choices as opposed to the ones loaded with chemicals. So, but astaxanthin allows us to stay in the sun for a longer period of time without negative effects.
Cool. I mean, it's one of those products that...
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
He's frozen. There he is. Sorry, you were frozen. You're on now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we've all been freezing a little bit for this recording. I'm not sure why, but I think astaxanthin is really interesting. And that really goes for almost any antioxidant. In the tropics or around the equator, vegetables and more like fruit and berries, they have these deep, vibrant colors. And those antioxidants actually protect the plants from this intense sun. Well, if you consume those like astaxanthin, which is one of the highest, it does offer you a level of protection from the sun. It won't stop you from burning. But you'll be able to spend more time in the sun without using excessive amounts of suntan lotion. So eating a high antioxidant diet, tinkering around with things like astaxanthin is a really great natural way to boost your ability to have sun exposure. And I think it's a great idea, Mike. I do the same thing when we go from a cooler climate in the Northeast to a vacation in like the Bahamas or the islands or Turks and Caicos or wherever. We load up on astaxanthin before we go to kind of give us a little bit of a baseline protection internally, not just externally.
Yeah,
and people ask, how do these things stay on the market then if they're dangerous? If these ingredients and sunscreens were harmful, wouldn't they not be sold? And the interesting thing about sunscreen is a lot of those ingredients are grandfathered because sunscreens have been around so long. So they're actually, when the FDA sort of started their safety profiles, there's a vast array of sunscreens that are just grandfathered in with no safety data. And that's the tricky part is, really being cognizant of those ingredients and looking at the labels carefully when you're choosing.
We can leave.
Yeah, there's two ways to block sun, right? There's physical.
We're all cutting out.
We're all cutting out. It's a crazy video. Are we getting so? Mike, you were saying something?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
The gremlins are on today.
I know the gremlins are on today. There's two ways to block the sun. A chemical blocker, which traditionally are the more dangerous ones with the super long names. And then there's the physical blockers, which includes clothes and shade, but also includes zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Those are much safer because they literally just, the sun comes, they hit the titanium or the zinc, and they just literally bounce off. The chemical blockers are the ones that get absorbed more, cause potentially more damage, and they're the ones with the really long names. So when you're looking for a sunscreen, look for the ones that have zinc oxide, titanium dioxide, and I'm certain there are safer ones that are chemical blockers, but they have such long names I can't even remember them. Oxy, blah, 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 whatever, and it just goes on for 16, 17 letters.
And that's just it. It's
Mike?
just like when you're picking up a carton for eating. If you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't be eating it. And the same thing I believe is true. You shouldn't be putting them on your skin because it's going right in. It's a direct entryway into your body. So if you can't pronounce it, you really shouldn't be putting it on yourself.
Yeah, and Mike, you said something else really important too, is that most directions are put your sunscreen on 20 minutes before you even go in the sun. I totally recommend the opposite. If you're going to use sunscreen, put it on 15 to 20 minutes after you've been in the sun, so you've at least gotten that vitamin D protection, and then you can protect yourself from getting sun. If you put it on 20 minutes before and then apply every hour, so you're never going to produce that vitamin D that you need, and the other corticosteroids that are produced from sun exposure. So to put it on before, I can't be on board with that unless you have extremely sensitive skin or underlying conditions or meds. I mean, there are obviously situations, but for the most part, most of us can handle 10, 15 minutes or so of sun, particularly in the safer parts of the day, like Wanda Lee said, before like 11 and then like after 4. To get that sun exposure that we really need. And it really has to be almost full body exposure too. It just can't be your head and face or just your arms and legs.
Yeah, for sure. It's a balancing act. We know that sun damage is real, but we also know lack of sun is damaging too.
Yep.
So it's trying to get those two sides of the equation to balance in a safe way. And everybody's skin tone, obviously I can take a lot of sun. I rarely burn. Despite the fact that I'm pale right now because it's after the winter, I will quickly turn brown, where, someone maybe with Michael's coloring is gonna, not tan as quickly. Just saying. You're funny.
Is the sun even out up in Canada in Nova Scotia?
We are warmer than you right now, so there. Although we did turn the pool heater on yesterday. It was 58 And this morning it was 59 because it was friggin' cold last night. So I don't think that was very effective. But yes, it's supposed to be well into the 20s today and tomorrow, which is warm. It's like 70 something.
You know, when the one thing Dr. McCullough said when he spoke at I think it was one of our UAC meetings out in Utah was that the researchers that were doing the vitamin D research and on the sun said that I forget the actual numbers. Maybe you remember, Noah, but vitamin D is created on our skin at what rate? Do you remember what that rate is?
No,
I
don't
want
remember.
to swear it was 1,000 IUs per minute. So if you waited 20 minutes before you applied the suntan lotion, you'd actually get 20,000 IUs of vitamin D. And then there was I believe what he said is you needed to wait 10 minutes before you went in the water. Otherwise, you'd wash it off. But
Yeah,
it would have to be
I
fact
actually
checked.
think it's. It would have to be. I actually think it's much longer than them. You're absolutely right. Like vitamin D, the sun hits our skin. It's created in our skin. It's just to surface, and then it's absorbed back into our body. So again, if you go out for 20 minutes, get sweat a little bit, get some vitamin D, and then run in and take a shower with soap and water, you've just washed all the vitamin D away too. So you need some time. That's an incredibly important part. If you're in the summertime, if you're taking 6 to 8 showers a day or going in and out of the pool, in and out of the pool, and not allowing that vitamin D to absorb, you're not getting that vitamin D you think. And that's one of the many reasons why we can talk about vitamin D, we can talk about sun, we can talk about how much you need, but it's really one of the reasons why you need to get your vitamin D levels checked so you know what you're at and what strategies you need to take to have your vitamin D levels in the normal ranges, is whether it's more sun, whether it's less showers, whether it's supplementing with vitamin D, and a whole host of other things to make sure your levels are in that 40 to 70 range.
Yeah, it's probably our most lacking nutritional key piece in most northern climates, including Europe, North America, and they're finding even in southern climates because of the broad spread use of sunscreens, which doesn't allow people to make the vitamin D they think they're getting, or because we are covered. And to get those kind of production of vitamin D in your skin, you need to have 80% of your skin exposed. So you're not getting that from your face. Yeah.
Right. So I guess the takeaways is pay real attention to the type of sunscreen you're using. Look for the organic brands. Look for the safer brands from the society that Dr. Wanderley mentioned. Get some exposure in the safer times of the day. Don't get some sun exposure and run in and take a shower. And enjoy that sun and use the safest suntan lotion you can. And the younger the child, the more the safer you want it to be too, because you're putting suntan lotion. In fact, in little babies and infants, I would recommend totally against it and covering them from head to toe with hats and shirts and covering and all that kind of stuff, because they are really susceptible to the toxins that are in sunscreen. So as always, if you have any thoughts on sunscreen or sun lotion and you want to share it with us, or there's ones that you really like and you use regularly and you highly recommend them, please share with us. Please leave it in a comment, because our tribe needs to know this as well, because we want to protect your health in as many different angles as we possibly can.
Yeah, just to recap, environmentalworkinggroup.org, ewg.org, or Google Environmental Working Group. Lots of information on sunscreen there. Probably the biggest library there is.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep.
Well, enjoy the sun, enjoy the upcoming summer, and be awesome and never unawesome.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.